And it's alive, I think. Pretty sure. The baby went down late. That sucks, but it is what it is. He took a late nap at my approval, which sounds weird, but like both my wife and I voted unanimously, but both tentatively, that our baby could and should nap at 5:30 when his bedtime is 7. This was a poor choice in retrospect. Live and learn. First time parents, so we're winging it, but he doesn't need to know that. Geology of the Pacific Northwest. If you can read the title inside of the screen, it's Darrington Lahars and Exotic Terrains. Darrington is north of me, but not that much further out. It's at the foothills of the North Cascades, getting into the Glacier Peak National Wilderness, for those in the geology. It is, in fact, in a lahar zone. Obviously, it's in a lava flow, but everywhere is, as I explained to a now former coworker. If you live in the Pacific Northwest, you are probably in a lahar zone, regardless of whether you think so or not, because we are next to a volcanic range that is all the type of volcano that makes pyroclastic flows, such as Mount St. Helens, right? Mount St. Helens is atypical of the type of volcanoes we have in our region. So, without further ado, here is Darrington Lahars and Exotic Terrains while I play Minecraft. With Gary, Paul, and Nick. Dr. Nick
I think I need to update my slide of Big 4 for you, because I wasn't quite sure how to show the chuckanut versus the melange, but I think that there's kind of where the vegetation is there, this line going up across. I think that's the upper part is melange.
Oh, wow.
And then this bottom is chuckanut.
This diagonal contact?
Well, I think it's actually sloping across, and that might be something within chuckanut, because I know that the stuff down here at the bottom to the right of the ice is conglomerate.
Hi everybody, welcome to Western Washington. I'm with a friend, Backcountry Gary. Learning from him again. Here in Western Washington, thinking about lahars, Glacier Peak volcano, exotic terrains, everything else. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Let's flip you around. Oh, sure.
So yeah, the Sauk River starts up here in by the old Monte Cristo on one fork, and the other fork basically is the goes up in North Fork, goes up into the Glacier Peak wilderness, but not draining Glacier Peak, and then the White Chuck River, which is a major tributary, comes off the west side of Glacier Peak, and we'll definitely stop and see that. That's where the water comes from.
I've done several hikes in this area. It's quite nice, actually.
Clear Creek down here is very clear, and the Sauk River's got a little bit of milk to it.
Because it's coming off a Glacier Peak volcano with the ice up there.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, this is the foothills to Glacier Peak
come
wilderness.
Down this valley. Big floods coming down the valley from Glacier Peak volcano. Lahar's possibly coming down.
Lahar's definitely coming down.
Yeah.
So you got to check some of these stumps are rocks, but most of them are stumps.
Really I know this hike.
Things to decide if it's wood or rock.
You do.
So this has been logged over at least once, we can guess?
No, this has not been logged in here. This area was skipped. There was the Sauk River Lumber Company that had one of the first big timber sales, and there was a railroad that went through kind of the outside edge here that went up the valley. And there's a whole
Sorry,
whole
I
bunch of
got
stories
definitely
about
distracted
that, how the train took
by
the
that.
loggers up and
Okay,
brought them
so
back
now that
down,
the
and
end is open,
camps and everything. But
So
I
I'd
don't
like
know
to
if the
maybe
trees were
get
too small back then. They had bigger trees up further up, because these were, I believe,
I
about
need to do some more
fairly young
exploration.
forest, about 100
Further out, I need
when
to
it
get some
initiated in
resource
the
gathered.
1850s, I think, or
So we're going
something.
to go on an
Probably
exploration
after a
trip.
fire.
We'll see how it goes.
Wow.
Wait,
Okay.
how
So
many
this
shovels do I have? I have 0
is
extra
old
shovels.
growth, but not the scale of classic old growth forests in Western Washington.
Right, this is old, but not real old.
But old because of a burn instead of old because of logging.
Right,
You see how quick my brain works?
that was fast.
Jeez. I think I'm a little groggy this morning. I'm just trying to process. Well, yeah, this is, so are these, what kind of trees are we looking at?
We're looking at Douglas fir,
Uh-huh.
and then there's a lot of western red cedar,
Oh,
and some of them,
how do you tell the difference? Can you tell the difference by bark?
Yeah.
yeah, the cedar has kind of this fibrous bark.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I
Yeah.
know.
It kind of goes,
Yeah, that's the
wow,
Western
so
red.
soft. Wow.
He's from eastern and
Western red
central
cedar.
Washington, and Washington State is very different west
As
and
opposed
east
to
side of the
Doug fir,
Cascades. On the east
bark.
side of the
it's
mountain,
kind of
we
the
have
thick corrugated bark.
different coniferous fir trees. So we have
Thick
pine
corrugated.
and Scotch pine, just basically different types of long needled
Yeah, a little harder,
conifers.
but still surprisingly.
On the west side, we have cedars
Huh.
and sequoia and
And then we have
Douglas fir,
we have a
and like we have a
Pacific yew right
multitude.
here.
We have a multitude of different type of coniferous trees, which are not indigenous to central and eastern Washington, not by like miles and miles and miles and miles. Like they are completely different ecosystems. It's
And
quite
this
remarkable.
was the yew got famous in the 80s as
Cancer
there's
treatment.
a chemical comes out of it, Taxol,
Yeah.
which was used for cancer treatments.
Huh.
And so we were at one point everybody was trying to save all the yew trees.
Huh.
And I think they made
Yeah, what happened?
a synthetic version.
Oh, okay.
And we have a western hemlock up here next up on your left.
My goodness.
That's not quite as the bark looks a little smoother, and you can also always tell hemlocks if you can see the top of the trees, because the very top of the hemlock will droop over,
Huh.
and you can't tell that on that tree from here, but
Right.
you can look at the bark and see that it's not as corrugated as the Doug fir.
So this is
Hemlock.
Western hemlock.
Is this the same one I was looking at? No, that was
No.
Western red cedar.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Pretty sure there's another one in there.
Sauk River. Bunch of big boulders, cobbles. If I was here by myself, I would not be thinking about lahars. But now that I'm talking to you, Gary, I'm almost visualizing liquid concrete coming in here, a lot of sand, mud, and these things. And then a continuation of the water flow is like taking all that fine stuff out of here, and we're left with these bigger rocks. Is that the way you're viewing it too?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Redistributing all of the fine stuff further and further and further down the valley.
And that fine stuff finally settles out down in Skagit Flats, down Puget Sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wait, you know what? I have.
It's very apparent from if you're up on Sauk Mountain, which is at the confluence of the Sauk River and the Skagit.
This is the cheap way of doing this.
On those rivers, you'll notice one of them is pretty clear, the Skagit, and the Sauk is not clear. And there's no volcano upstream on the Skagit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And part of the very clear water probably has something to do with the dams, but there's some definitely there is some silt input, but not as near as much as there is coming down off of Glacier Peak and the White Chuck and the Seattle drainages.
Okay, just spitballing with you here. The White River coming off of Rainier was the main pipeline for the Osceola mudflow, following Rainier all the way
which is the
down
major
to
lahar in our
Commencement
area.
Bay at
But
Tacoma.
this one was
Is
also major,
this
but it was earlier.
the White River version of Glacier Peak? Like, is this the main river coming off of Glacier Peak coming this way?
Well, the Seattle River is actually a really good analogy to the White River on Rainier because it starts on the kind of east side and goes around the north side and then out. And then this is almost more like the Puyallup side, so to speak.
Yeah, okay.
Coming off the west side of Glacier Peak.
And I know this is not your work. You're a longtime Forest Service guy, but I'm just getting started thinking about lahars. Do you know about lahar deposits in this versus, what was the other river again? Seattle? Seattle.
Yeah.
Pretty healthy lahar deposits in both drainages as far as you know?
Yes. Possibly healthier in the Seattle than here.
But
Not
no,
sure about that.
No work on those lahar deposits, like dates or size, or like was there a big one and then some smaller ones more recently, do you think?
I believe there has been a fair amount of work done on those, and can't think of the name.
I'm putting you on the spot,
right
but
now,
like,
they've been differentiated into several different major events.
God, I'm just stunned that I haven't even thought about the basics of the lahars down these drainages.
Well, we'll go see some here
Before
shortly.
I go exploring, I would like one of these.
Okay, influences at the confluence.
Sense,
I see a little sign over here, Gary, but maybe could you help us with this handy little map here? First of all, kind of what we're doing in this video here today. So Seattle is down to the south. This is I-5 heading up to Bellingham. And can you take it from there, please?
Yeah, so we started out up in Darrington this morning, and we're working our way up the Sauk River, and we're now there. And where we're at is the confluence of the Whitechuck River, which flows off of the west side of Glacier Peak, and the Sauk River, which continues on up into the wilderness area and also up into the town site of Monte Cristo.
Okay.
I've done so many hikes out there.
Schematic here. I don't know. Is this you guys? No. Yeah, this is Forest Service. Whoever, you know who put this together?
I don't remember.
Nice
it's the U.S. Forest Service.
I love this because I'm surprised that we're thinking about lahars here.
Well,
but we shouldn't be surprised. And so Glacier Peak is an active volcano. These guys are not, but we've already filmed a little bit, full disclosure, this morning looking at some differences. What did you want to spitball on here as far as, I just like this vantage point with the lahar story.
Okay,
you know,
so much for lahars. We needed to put the straight freaking creek fault runs right through here, right through there. And so we're
looking east.
We're looking east, southeast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So that's part of the story here. You can't leave that out.
No, you can't. Well,
because it's part of an exotic terrain, so there's a fault line there where one plate collided with another plate.
So everything in the bedrock-wise here,
in the conglomeration that is the state of Washington's geology.
Easton, pretty much over here. Yeah. And then we got Chewacum and Nason Ridge over here, and then various pieces of the Sloan Creek plutons, which are they're all like roughly 90.
Yeah, in the 90s. Well, there we go. So that's crystalline core. That's Wenatchee block.
Yeah.
Right up in there. And then to the novice, you're like, oh, okay, well, there's another piece of Easton or something probably, or the Chewacum. But no, that's a very young volcano. So we do have lahar deposits coming down this in the last 2 million years.
Those are the only two
the last 12,000 years.
12,000 years, seriously.
Yeah. And Glacier Peak's, one of the interesting things to me about it is, unlike most of the other Cascade volcanoes, it kind of erupted on a ridge top.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of through and ridge gneiss. And so it got to start out at 7,000 feet basically, and then go up from there, and didn't have to start out
because there's exposures of that old stuff up pretty high. That's why you know there's a ridge?
Yeah, both sides of the volcano. Went right over the top of the stuff.
as opposed to Baker, where you don't have exotic stuff going up that high?
You got some. I mean, Nooksack up there,
Yeah.
that it's on top of, and
Huh.
then some of the Belpass Melange, but not as high up.
Huh. All right, so not to beat it too hard, but here's the North Cascades Highway. So I've been making videos on Highway 20. If you saw a video with Bob Miller and Stacia Gordon, we started in the Marble Mount area and then went up and over the North Cascades, Diablo Lake, you might remember. So this is an area I've never been to the south.
And we're going the other way.
Yes.
We're going to be looking
Last
for
comment. I feel like it's an
new terrain,
underappreciated
new
story
resources.
that Lahars.
This is
from
technically
Glacier
a
Peak
swamp, even
volcano
though
went
this is
down
how
to
swamps were
Seattle,
when they first came out.
White Chuck, Sauk,
Not
And
the
then-
Sauk,
not the Sauk.
the lower part of the Sauk.
Oh, I see. So
This is the
the
updated
stuff in the
swamp
lower
over
part,
here.
Lahar stuff here came down the White Chuck.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, there's not a connection between the North Fork Sauk and the volcano itself.
Thank you. But then the story that I feel like needs to be done, I guess I will at some point if nobody else is going to. Well, help me out, Gary. Lahars aren't coming here. This
Yes.
is not, they are?
Yep, they're coming down both the North Fork of this Stillaguamish this way, which is a oversized valley, and also going up to Skagit and all the way around to the tulip fields.
I mean, that's the crazy part to me. This is so flat if you know this drive on I-5.
Mhm.
And I need to investigate more, but it seems pretty solid that there's Lahar deposits you can trace all the way back up to this active volcano. And I just don't, maybe I'm the only one out to lunch, but I don't think people are talking about that or visualizing that. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, what's here to take a peek at? Let's just keep it rolling. Why not? Oh, I see milky water.
Yeah,
I think.
from the
Maybe I
mineral
don't.
deposit.
You see milky water.
I think so.
Yeah, it might be a little hard to see the clear water on the other side of the
Oh,
river
this
coming
is-
down the Sauk River. Morning.
Oh, wow. Hi. Hi.
Oh, hi there.
Hi. Hi.
Yeah, this is exceedingly low water.
Ooh, sweet
I mean,
berries.
normally almost all these boulders would be
There we
covered up.
go. We're starting to get
But
some
you can
update
see
stuff.
some of the variety. I mean, it's like maybe almost a chuck and nice there. Down here, we can go look at some of those.
Sure,
if you
let's
want.
go.
So we will not be opening up
Lots of,
any,
Obviously, lots of
any
andesite,
loot table chests in any structures,
green, pink.
because I would like to retain their ability to possibly
If you blindfolded
the new
me,
stuff.
oh wow.
I do not want to mess with that outpost, but it may have a laze now,
Muscovites
so
and
I think
something in there.
that's all new
I think
terrain.
that's probably a Chihuahua.
Okay.
I don't want to
Like I'm just
reload a
mentally
bunch of that
thinking
stuff.
about other drainages off of other
Help.
Cascade
So we're
stratovolcanoes.
in the 1.12
Like
update
drainages
now.
off of Baker, drainages off of Adams. Are they all looking like this? Are they all with these huge boulders in a valley floor like this? Or is there something
Oh,
different
yeah, I
here?
think there's more. I think the unique thing here is the variety. Because
Oh.
you have stuff coming out of the Wenatchee block. You've got Easton.
Yeah, oh, right.
Yeah.
You've got
Good God, look at this.
Melange. Here's some piece of green blue schist right here.
Yeah, so not only is there a stratovolcano at the head of this, but there's this exotic terrain fruitcake that also is contributing to the bed load here,
Yeah.
which you don't have at Adams. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a big piece.
How the hell did that move?
Oh, Lahar.
Yeah.
Has to be Lahar. You can't
I don't think the river moves this.
think so either, do you?
Somebody left us a sample here.
Wow. Pretty.
It's pretty.
That's all we're going to say.
It's igneous.
There you go. There's
But this looks a lot like Chihuahua schist to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
And the next one
God.
looks an awful lot like blue schist, green schist, I think.
Fish are squirrely. This is from the fresh animations. It really bumps up the
This
look
is quite an
and
area.
feel of a lot of the mobs.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece right there with cut by all the dikes.
Right. So this is rare, huh? To see these many,
I think
so many of these boulders exposed.
Yeah. Usually the water we be perhaps almost waist deep here, and
God, look at that.
rains too much, we'd be way in over our heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real nice one down there.
I see it too, yeah.
Yeah.
Get that telephoto lens, Gary. Yeah, we could easily spend the whole day here, for goodness sake. But there's other things to see. Thank you. Wow, what a stop.
I hope I'm going in the right direction back home.
Yeah, look at these things. Look at the size of these things.
Ooh.
Probably not.
Yeah, somebody's beating the rocks apart there, huh?
Anger man.
And maybe we can date those rocks up there with the moon and sun on it.
Wow. Well, it's almost like you can talk yourself into Lahar right here.
Yeah, I think you can.
Still have the matrix. The sandy matrix, maybe even some of the, oh yeah, wow, look at this.
I think you're right.
Is this thing gonna come out? No, but there's some beautiful hornblends in there. Yeah, so to visualize,
Yeah, this looks like it's jungle, but it was a spruce
sandy,
forest.
pumicey matrix around each of these boulders, big and small, Lahar in other words. But once upon a time, that deposit, you just stay right there, Gary, I'm gonna pull back. Yeah, it's in there pretty good.
Yeah, that's.
There's another wood
But
type.
to have that deposit once upon a time, not be just on the bank, but to continue all the way across the valley.
Oh my god, a village.
That's the visual, but I'm a rookie here over here.
Oh
I'm a
my
rookie trying to figure
God.
this out.
Bone Stock Village. Original village. None of these villagers will have a workstation because this village wouldn't have spawned with one. Holy nine. These are exceedingly...
It's the drop off.
You just don't see these anymore.
Okay.
No door here.
Oh.
Hmm.
Oh my.
White Chuck River. Undercut the bank.
Yeah,
I would say so.
it does that. There's White Chuck
And,
Bench Trail is an excellent example of that. Well, this is dope.
Really? Oh, look at that.
Hmm.
This is
Yeah,
incredibly lightweight pumice. Glacier Peak, rounded,
Hmm?
transported down here. Oh my heavens.
Yeah, it's all over.
Yes, pumpkins. We're gonna be able to make pumpkin
And
pie.
Wait, you don't think this fell out of the sky?
no, I don't think
Incidentally,
so. I think it has moved.
only wheat.
And if we,
Oh, that's
maybe this is a
1.19
good spot
terrain
to
for sure.
stand.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to.
You want to look back over.
I
do,
am
yeah.
so
I'm gonna,
excited
I
about the
promise
fact
I'll
that this
be
village
careful.
exists.
I'm gonna hang on.
It's really, really unfortunate that there
Hold
is
on to that
not
stump, so if it goes, you can go with it.
Right.
there are not more beds here because these guys are gonna not.
I
You
just
guys are
caught
not
that
gonna
by the head.
survive.
I'm going over by that tree.
There's no beds. There's missing doors. Let me
Holy shit.
try and fix
Sorry,
this.
Patrick. So if you can see that kind of fine stuff
Yeah,
at the top there. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 15, 20 feet,
there's a
Oh,
lot
that's
of pigs.
classic lava.
which is
'Cause
like
it's
all
classic
this
Minecraft.
pumice. And then there's a
Oh,
couple
there's a
different
dark oak
lahars in there,
forest.
I think, further down,
Okay.
at least.
How
Fuck
many
this village
phases
for
are there
now.
like this
We'll maybe come back to
in
it.
this drainage?
If we
Is
get out
this
of its
it?
render distance, then
This
it
is
won't matter.
certainly one of the big ones.
Goodness. Well, this had to have been studied carefully, right?
Well, this one's pretty new. This was happened last winter.
Oh, you're
This
kidding
is very
me.
fresh, yeah.
Oh, that's, I didn't even notice down in the river. Really? So that stuff slid, what month do you think? Was there a bunch of rain right before or
Yeah,
snow?
there's a bunch of rain. There's a bunch of kind of middling flood events last winter.
Goodness.
But you notice it's the kind of gray blue down
Yeah.
there. And then you can see it down at the bottom,
Let's see if we can
down here.
birch, just because that's like the one
Kind of
birch in the
lower,
area.
lower third, lower half, which is
Yeah.
that's I believe that's all glacial lake deposits that happened prior to lahars and pumice.
Well, back in my area, yeah, that blue-gray clay is just a giveaway for a glacial lake, and the same thing over here, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
it's real interesting looking down. When you look down on this, it's almost eerily identical to the Oso slide.
I was just gonna say.
But the Oso slide's another probably order of magnitude larger than this.
Yeah, but the same conditions, the same
Wow.
But it did
results.
shove the river over, and
Just last winter, this river gets shoved. Where did the river come hard along the base before last winter? Here, do you think?
harder, yeah, harder.
Huh.
I mean, you can see there's some leftover trees down the bottom, a big cottonwood there. So it was cutting away down in here.
Good God. Did Oso expose lahars? Do you remember?
I don't think it exposed lahars. I think it exposed just more glacial
Outwash
gravels and till and clay.
which is not the story here. I don't see the big outwash gravels here necessarily.
No, this would have happened. I mean, what we have glacial is down at the bottom there, and that was the lake deposit. So that happened after there's a lobe of ice that off of the Puget lobe, essentially, that pushed its way southwards up the Sauk Valley. And when it started backing up, all the water got stuck between the snout of that and the exit, which had been over Barlow Pass at the time.
So this lahar's got to be super young. How young is it? Younger than 10,000 years? Has to be, right? It's sitting on top of all this glacial stuff.
Yeah, I don't know about 10, but 12. I think it was pretty rapid succession when the ice left and there was a big eruption on Glacier Peak, and we'd have to.
Wow.
I'm not quite sure the exact timing, but certainly you had ice, and then you had the lake, and then you had Glacier Peak going off and sending lahars and
This is stunning.
pumice down here.
Stunning in part because I thought today was nothing but exotic terrains, and we spent
Yep.
the whole morning in this stuff, which is, it's just a pleasant surprise to learn this quaternary stuff.
Ah, dang it. You know, it's funny, it's green. Let's try this one. There we go.
Ooh, that sounded good.
Of course, it's the only one I had.
What's that look like?
Shucks and blue shish, green shish.
Yep. Just like French Cabin Creek.
Just like it. But we're on the other side of the Straight Creek Fault. Oh no, we're not.
We're on the right side of the Straight Creek, the proper side. Straight Creek is right like half a mile east of us here.
Okay, so we're west of the Straight Creek Fault. This, if we go back 50 million years ago, this stuff should be south of Yakima.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, okay.
You want to keep it? That's a nice color.
Thank you. I would definitely like to keep it. You brought your map.
So we're right about in here.
Yeah.
And we got three things. That the ES is the Shuckson, the ED is the Darrington Phyllite, the PDC is something Chilliwack. So I think we're probably right there at that, you know, the level of detail. You lose a little bit here on this scale, but we've definitely got green schist, so it's this little wedge here they show coming down.
So that fault is really a family of faults, isn't it? Like
a family of faults.
Like
faulty
got
family.
all these strands coming through there, you know? Like it's almost like the Ross Lake Fault zone, you know? It's not one clean razor sharp break. I don't think, you know?
Part of it is. I mean, it's this piece up here, I had that slide here where it's really, you can straddle that and be 1 foot in green schist and another foot in the one of the Pluton there.
Right. Oh, there's Pew. There's not Pew.
The KT, the Cretaceous tonalite or whatever, which is the same as the KT down here, and the KT right here by Mount Stewart,
mushroom,
and the 10 Peak, and the Dirty Face, and the Black Peak.
You're out of control now.
Yeah, I know, we're getting out of here.
Okay, Gary, we got blue sky, we got mountains.
Shockingly, we actually have mountains today. Bit of a surprise. We had Valhall Peak up above us here, which is clearly within the Melange Belt.
Stunning. Like, I didn't know this kind of relief existed in this valley. Hello. Yeah. Hey.
And Backcountry Gary.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
My name's Rich.
Hi, Rich. Nice to meet you.
Gary.
Hi, Rich. What's your last name? Trenter. Oh, wow.
They just opened this trail here on the 7th.
Oh.
The bridge has been out for a couple years, and it was closed until the 7th. They helicoptered that new section.
Were you here?
Not the 7th. We did it last Thursday. We went up there. Trail's in good shape, but there's not much of a snowfield there now.
Yeah.
But there's still 2 entrances into the cave.
Well,
sweet.
Cool.
There's rocks up there, though.
There are tons of rocks up there.
Yeah.
It looks like they're actually stratified in some way.
It's Chuckanut. Eocene. Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
Do you guys know each other?
No.
Oh, wow. Well, that's cool.
You live in Darrington, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy for you to get down.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So, wow.
what a skyline behind you. First of all, thrilled that we can get a chance to see it. Can you give us those peak names, please?
Well, the pointy one up there is Hall Peak. It's about 54, and it's in the Melange Belt. I'm right now
Okay.
forgetting if it's the east or west.
Sure. Wow.
And Big 4 is right under the sun,
Okay.
and that's 6135.
Jeez.
And on the way it's mapped, it looks like there's a contact between the Chuckanut, southeast Chuckanut, and the Melange that kind of slices across the face of the mountain.
Huh.
And then right behind the mountain, there's a Vesper stock. So it's kind of come in and cooked everything. But we'll take a closer look.
Yeah, let's
when
take a
we
walk,
get up there.
walk over there. I just thought I'd take advantage of this. So you've had a hand in some of the trail work here, or maybe all the trail work here. Can you give us a sense of?
Well, the trail's been here a long time, but it's, as Richard just said,
Yeah.
very heavily used, and it's a very difficult environment. The amount of precipitation here is really high. It's well over probably 160 inches a year. Much of that falls as snow higher up. The trail starts off, as you can see, it goes across this wetland, which is unstable. There's beavers, they make dams, they cause problems to the trail. The trail has to get fixed, it gets raised, and it just recently was actually, this is all redecked.
Yeah.
Next problem is you got to cross the river on the bridge. And the bridge I'm familiar with was installed about 1969 and was very good up until 1990 when the river started widening. And then we had to extend the bridge by about 20 feet. And then that kind of barely hung on for a while. And then in 2006, big flood, the whole far end of the bridge wiped out and needed to be replaced. So that was the next problem. Then the third problem, you get up here, there's clay. And clay is really hard to build on and keep a trail there. We tried putting surfacing, gravel surfacing on it.
Cool.
Just hard to keep that there. Then you go a little further up. The next problem is avalanches come off of the mountain there, and they have quite a wind blast with them sometimes. And they have a lot of debris with them. And we had 2 bridges we installed. I'm thinking it was in 2010, and they didn't last very long. Got blown out by avalanche.
Really?
And then got put back in.
Holy!
After that.
Am I in Washington, Gary? How do I?
You're in Washington.
What in the world? I haven't even heard about this place before. Seriously.
Well, Washington.
The Big 4.
The lodge was right there where the fireplace is, and of course it burnt down. And
goodness.
Yeah.
Just the relief. What's the relief from our elevation to the top? 5,000 feet?
That's not that much. Only about 4, a little over 4.
Yeah.
I don't know where I've been, man, but
that's a very dynamic environment we have here.
Sakes, yeah. So
yeah, the Western Washington is different from Eastern Washington.
Places where, like, what comes first, the crowds or the trails that you establish? Like, are you?
Well, I mean, there was some mining that was going on up here.
Yeah.
A little bit. There was a trail. There was a bridge. The lodge that was put in. And we should have looked at the sign because I always forget what year it was installed. It was accessed by the railroad that came up from Everett to Monte Cristo initially.
We got pumpkin already. Got melons.
And so then they fixed the trail. I think was put in roughly the same location about that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it keeps kind of getting rebuilt, widened out a little bit more to handle the masses.
And the masses are coming up here. It's day use. This is not some trailhead for a whole network of backcountry.
Right. So, this is just.
This one's not.
People are fascinated with ice caves.
Oh.
And so they want to go see the ice caves.
Here we go. That's the draw. That's starting to make more sense. Like, I would totally be attracted to this place, but I was just kind of wondering, like, why is it that impressive? or this popular to be up here, but the ice cave thing, yeah, that captures people for whatever reason.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, we've tried to change the name and
Oh, really?
limited success.
Goodness sakes.
So we're looking over here on the right is Mount Dickerman. You can't quite see the top of that. And we're looking up the Perry Creek drainage.
Dickerman's a hard hike.
And across the way is
Fun.
essentially it's the shoulder of a Stillaguamish peak. And most of what we're seeing over here is Barlow Pass volcanics.
Huh.
I'm happy to see this. This was been brushed here recently. I was up here earlier this summer. It was pretty crowded in.
So what's our destination here?
I think we're going to go up to the end of the trail.
Okay.
We'll go look but not enter any ice cave that may be present. They're unstable. They may fall on us. And there's been a number of fatalities up here where people have been playing around near the ice caves or observing the ice caves, and chunks of ice fall off. And it's, as you can see by the sign there, they can kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to be killed today, so
I'm with you on that.
let's look but not touch.
It's look but don't enter.
Huh.
So here we're coming up to the crossing of the South Fork Stillaguamish River.
I don't see that big arched structure like we had the video earlier this summer.
No,
With the helicopters and everything.
no, there were helicopters and everything here, but just a much saner approach in my mind.
Huh. There were helicopters though? With
Oh
this
yeah.
one? Oh,
yeah.
wow, really?
Yeah, each one of these segments was flown in
I'll
from the
follow
parking
you.
lot.
Each segment flown in by helicopter. I would never have guessed that. Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, there's some debate about the whole bridge when we first got it, but the thing was that the aluminum is very lightweight,
Uh-huh.
and we have some pretty long spans, and we were trying to use the existing supports that didn't wash out in the flood.
Huh.
That's amazing how it's grown up. But if you kind of look down in the bushes here, there's kind of a chunk of concrete back in here, and that was one of the footings for the bridge
Oh, yeah.
that got washed downstream and took the bridge with it in 2006.
South Fork, what river again,
This
please?
is the South Fork Stillaguamish
Stillaguamish.
River.
Stillaguamish.
And across the way there, you can see some of the nemesis, which is you can see that layer of clay.
Yeah,
And on top of that, there's some till.
yeah. That's no good, huh?
That's no good. So that's
It's great for pottery.
That side's been eroding, and this bridge found itself
As a
being, after
as
we
a
actually
amateur potter
in 2009
who likes
when
to
we
source
put it
their
in
own
right
clay,
beforehand, we lengthened it,
the South Fork
by about
Stillaguamish
15
is an
feet, as I
excellent
recall.
source of clay.
and
And it is from
Apparently
a
not
very
enough.
ancient deposit. So
So
like the clay
the
is
shiny segment here we're about to step
historically
on
interesting.
was about half as long as it is now. And so that was taken out in 2019 to make sure it just didn't fall in the river.
Huh. I don't know why I'm laughing, by the way, but
Well, sometimes that's all you can do.
okay, well, this is one of your shoots, one of your avalanches that happened in the last 20 years?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, and I think it was 2010, 2011.
Huh. Okay.
And I don't know if you maybe noticed some of the tree tops around here they don't have tops.
Yeah.
And so they got tops, a lot of the tops got blown out and got
Snapped off. Huh?
snapped right off. And then up here, a whole bunch of trees blew down. There didn't used to be a nice view of the mountain
Huh.
like there is now.
Wow, what a sight that must have been. These things just snapping like toothpicks.
Yeah, you didn't want to be
We
here
need
for
at
that.
least 4 of those guys.
Almost like smaller scale, obviously, but like the blast zone of St. Helens, you know, that big charge of whatever out in front of the ash flow, same idea. Just
Yeah.
blow these trees down and scald them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you drop snow off the top of there, it just drops straight down 4,000 feet, and there's a bit of a wind blast when that hits the
boy,
bottom.
I suppose.
Sweet.
I think I need to update my slide of Big Four for you, because I wasn't quite sure how to show the Chuckanut versus the Melange, but
Wow,
I
this is
think that the
from the intro.
kind of where the
but
vegetation is there, this
Yeah,
line
this
going
is what
up
it's like to live in Western
across. I think
Washington, which
that's
this is why I
upper
don't want
part
to
is,
ever move from this state.
Melange,
It's
Oh, wow.
and
fucking
then
gorgeous.
this bottom is
Here.
Chuckanut.
This diagonal
Don't tell
contact?
anyone.
Well,
Like that?
I think it's actually sloping
Everyone
across,
keeps
and
moving
that
here.
might be something within
People
Chuckanut.
keep figuring it
Because I
out.
know that the stuff down here at the bottom to the right of the ice is conglomerate.
Alright, let's try and get
And
back.
just
And I
looking
think
at all the kind of the stair-steppy
know how to get
nature of
there.
the way those blocks break off over there, that suggests the same thing to me.
My goodness. This should be a
Take a look.
pop-up spot. What the heck? Is there enough parking?
Well, that upper parking lot, yeah. And people can assemble down by the where we park. No cell phone. That's your.
Yeah.
That'd be your Starlink test.
Like the dish out here.
And yeah, you'd have 1,000 people and need a PA system too.
Yeah, 1,000 a year groupies, Gary. Well, I'm just stunned by this place. And I can only imagine if it's a late June evening and the west sun is lighting this face up, I'm guessing. But even with this condition, it's just, look at that. Holy Lord.
The Northwest is beautiful. It's cool. We picked up some eggs. We have a potential to get a baby chicken now.
The Big Four are literally the 4 major peaks surrounding us, or not?
No,
Ew.
a lot of people thought there's like 4 bumps on the top, but
Yeah.
in reality, in the early days, if you're up by Monte Cristo looking this way, there's a patch of snow that made a Big Four, kind of over on the left-hand side. And
Okay.
one of those things that sticks, like that
Yeah.
Holmes Creek
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
talking about.
All right, so it's Sesame Street. You can count Dracula's count. 1,
There
2,
you go.
4. That's the number 4.
Rex.
Just double checking. We are in Washington. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, we are in Snohomish County, Washington.
Yep.
Roughly the middle.
Unbelievable.
A little on the north end.
You're 31 and I show up. What have I been doing?
Well, you've been doing some cool stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not interested in going in there. People, I suppose, go in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's dangerous.
It's just snow, right?
It's ice.
It is ice?
Yeah, we can walk up to the edge of it there.
Huh.
Those form as the glaciation melts back. It exposes,
Yeah, a lot of argillite looking stuff.
or it's
That's
a
out of
it's
his,
a it's
that's out of the
a
chucking,
water outlet.
I guess. I don't really know what's in the Melange Belt besides Arcosic sandstone. And some gabbro that's holding up some of the ridges, I guess.
And a bunch of chert,
Sure.
some limestone,
Okay.
a little marble.
Well, it is a Melange. It's
Little
going to be a blender unit
cultivation.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
We have an avalanche right there.
Uh,
The conglomerate.
Fall off there on the side.
Nice. Yeah, ice caves can kill.
Sure.
Yeah, that sweep I think is just incredible.
I do too.
Well, the stratification
Chuckanut
is.
or Melange, I've already forgotten.
Chuckanut. And then Melange definitely up the top part up there. And this looks like Chuckanut to me too. And I know the rocks right at the base up here are conglomerate.
And every time you say the word Chuckanut, I think the word Swak.
Yeah.
Same stuff, you know? Huh.
And it does look like to me like there is some sort of fault that kind of runs up the gully, because there's like those guys and then there's these other guys that are going like kind of angling into it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, boo.
Something must have run into these rocks. Something big.
That's crazy talk.
Yeah. Probably some big bunch of basalt or something coming out of
This
the
is
ocean
definitely,
running into it.
I gotta check your
Chunk
ID now,
border
see if you remember the lunatic
issue.
fringe or not. Forced to wear a name tag out here, lunatic fringe. Nah, Silesia is not a lunatic fringe. That's fine. That's mainstream.
Well, this is, it's kind of encouraging after that long hot weather. There's a fair amount of actual snow. I mean, you can see this, there's a very icy blue pillar right in here.
Yeah.
But this looks like this is last winter's snow.
Mm.
Hey, you drive a bus in there.
Come right to the rim.
Man, what is my machine doing? Give me a second here, guys. I can probably close this. Oh yeah, I've got a local Kubernetes cluster running. I can definitely close that.
Think of Jerome Westman right now.
Give me a second.
The subglacial.
Plug these suckers with gravel.
Somebody said it heard that word too many times. Silesia, okay.
When the rustic sourdough came in, yeah.
And the rustic sourdough arrived and pushed up apparently Melange Belt, so it started eroding some of its chert.
God, this is staggering.
What is that? Is that, there might be like little chunks of
plutons,
gabbro.
yeah. This is just...
Yeah, pretty hard stuff. I mean, it's all breaking right through the class. Yeah, this stuff here kind of looks like
Ah, here's that village.
some of the argillite in the Melange Belt.
I think it's chucking it down here and melange up high.
Yeah, if we can trust Ralph and Roland's map, which I
think we should.
generally think we can trust to a high degree.
I think we should. Yeah, there's a big slab that just broke off.
Yeah, that's you can almost look up there and see, oh, where it came out of.
Come on, Gary, let's restore this. Let's get that slab back to where it belongs.
Hiya!
Look at that.
First try.
An ocelot. A wild ocelot. In this
That's pretty stuff.
taiga forest.
Yeah, look at that fracture pattern. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I don't know where that is from. That could be melange. Feels like it to me.
I haven't seen any
upper part.
Yeah, put it this way, I haven't seen any of that in this walk. Nothing that hard in this walk. Again, you've got your pluton nearby that maybe cooked everything.
Yeah, and you got your shale though in the swamp.
Shale, yeah, black shale.
Right.
But
not that.
Not this. Yeah, it's dense. This stuff's dense. Huh. Crazy. There's just incredible amount of this conglomerate. Or in some places breccia. Like, I'm really impressed. Like,
I do not know why.
well, thank you for such a nice day.
Oh, my pleasure.
I've just been thrilled by this.
Great to get out here and actually see a mountain.
I think that's what we're saying. This young family's enjoying it too. Okay, Gary, well, until next time.
Hey, these blocks look vaguely familiar.
Hi everybody, this is a long video coming at you. Much longer than normal.
Good.
I filmed all of it in one day up on the North Cascades Highway in North Cascades National Park, Northern Washington, USA. And I was not alone. As you'll see, I spent the entire day with Stacia Gordon and Bob Miller, 2/3 of the dream team. The third is Mike Eddy, who was up in Alaska last week with Aaron Donaghy, his PhD student. You know all these folks if you've been following the channel. So I camped with Stacia and Bob on Wednesday night, camped again on Thursday night, different location, but we spent the entire Thursday driving up and over the North Cascades on that highway, starting Marble Mount area, and then working our way east, up and over, and the last portion of this video is from Washington
It
Pass.
must be under here.
Probably one of my favorite areas in all of Washington. And so, without further ado, I hope that you enjoy this very special episode, this mini-series, essentially. 6 stops along the North Cascades Highway. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Bob. Where are we?
Well, we're up the Cascade River Road, a little bit out of Marble Mount.
Okay.
On the west side of the Cascades, as you can probably see by all the trees and the rain. This is an area that neither Stacia and I have done that much work. Stacia's done a little more, but this provides an overview. We're at the extreme western edge of the crystalline core of the North Cascades, of the igneous and metamorphic rocks. And so out to the west, somewhere not that far, in those trees, is the Straight Creek Fault.
What direction are we looking down this way?
We should be, we want to be looking west.
Okay.
It's a little hard to tell with no sun,
right,
without our compass. you can look down and see the Cascade River below. It's really
Beautiful.
flowing beautifully.
Beautiful.
And the point being that there is a major fault, the Straight Creek fault in Washington, and it's called the Fraser River Fault in British Columbia,
Yeah.
that extends for about, well, at least 300-400 kilometers and still going in British Columbia. And so it has various estimates, but the current approximate estimate's about 150 kilometers of right lateral strike slip, which makes it sort of the Washington version of the San Andreas Fault, although not quite as much movement. And it was active from around 49 million years to, well, it ended by 34 because it's cut by something called the Chilliwack batholith to the north. And so we don't know exactly when it stopped, but in that interval.
Well, it started 49 instead of 50. My ears perked up. Okay,
Yeah.
I always say 50, so
Well, the best evidence is 49.3. So, you know, we got to be precise for Mike since he isn't here. That would be the Teanaway dikes we think are related to the Straight Creek, the way the stress field. But 49.50, yeah, would be the best evidence.
okay. So is it an accident that this river's along strike of the fault?
It actually cuts back. It actually overall cuts more east-west. The Straight Creek's almost due north-south.
Yeah.
So yeah, this isn't controlled by it. Straight Creek, interestingly, I went there many years ago as a grad student, is a straight creek. And that one is because of the fault.
I see.
And it was named by the locals, whoever named it, because of how straight it was, and off the Mountain Loop Highway. So, yeah, no, the Cascade River
Yikes.
cuts back into the core. And
heard it.
what it separates here,
Did
it's
not
not
stop.
as dramatic in terms of the metamorphic grade.
Eat something.
The rocks to the west are the oceanic terrains, and arc terrains that you've talked about in other sessions of what's called the Northwest Cascade System, and the melange belts as well. They're low grade, they're not very metamorphosed. And overall, once you cross the Straight Creek Fault, there's a big jump in metamorphic temperature, so the rocks were much, much hotter. It's not as high right here near Marble Mount, but these rocks still are higher temperature metamorphic rocks than the rocks to the east,
So
or to the west, excuse me.
So which two units are juxtaposed on opposite sides of the fault right here?
Well, we would have the Cascade River schist, good place for it on the Cascade River here, and on the west side, at least down closer to Marble Mount in Rockport, you have the eastern suite, the blue schist, green schist facies rocks. So you have rocks of very different pressure versus temperature regimes. So striking contrast in that sense.
Have you done some work right in here, or not at all?
We have done a little bit of work on this outcrop, and I should say my former student Kirsten Sauer, who I think we've talked a lot about her papers. She did a little work on this outcrop, and it is a metaconglomerate, and she did find a zircon population that was around 93 million years ago, which was quite surprising because this is supposed to be all part of the Cascade River schist, which had been interpreted to be much older than that, Triassic in terms of ages. So that's still a bit of a mystery conundrum that we haven't quite resolved. And then Kirsten did a lot of mapping, and you can throw out a little pitch for the USGS where they provide what they call these EdMap grants, which are to do a bunch of mapping of a specific area. And so Kirsten did some work that goes up into kind of from the Cascade River schist, you cross into some of the Napiqua complex, which again is part of what are thought to be the host rocks to the arc magmatic system. And then you get into some of the Skagit rocks and the orthogneisses, and so she kind of mapped out some of the boundaries there, both kind of off of the Cascade River Road on some of the trails, and then also near Thornton Lakes, which you can access from Highway 20 on the north side. And I should say for there, talking about kind of the pressure differences, I mean, that's a little farther into the crystalline core, but Ann Hansen got some pressures from up there that were around 12 kilobars. So pretty deep for some of the Napiqua rocks from that area. So just that big jump going across the Straight Creek Fault in terms of the PT conditions.
Well, I mean, but this right here is Cascade River schist, not Napiqua.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Liz Shermer at Western Washington, their group is really the ones that have been doing a ton of work on the Cascade River schist in this area.
So Ned Brown at Western Washington. Western Washington is university. They've had a number of grad students who've worked up in up off the Cascade River, up towards Cascade Pass as well, up this road.
Well, I know you don't want to spend 2 hours here, but like, I don't know, it's my first time seeing the Cascade River schist. Like, can we look at anything? Is it a conglomerate right here, did you say? No, you didn't say that.
We did.
Okay.
We did. It's not the most beautiful rock, and a lot of the Cascade River schist, and as well as the Napiqua in this area, tends to be these kind of fine-grained, pretty grungy looking rocks.
Huh.
Trying to see the good spot for conglomerates.
You can see it has a steep foliation. The rocks breaking along steep plains, reflecting sort of sub-horizontal shortening here.
So Bob, why is this broken out as a separate unit from Napiqua or even Skagit? Like,
well,
a basic question, but
It initially it wasn't. When Peter Misch named the Cascade River schist, he included what is now Roland Tabor broke out in Napiqua. The Cascade River schist is much of it is metaclastic rock. There are metavolcanic rocks in there that are more like those of a volcanic arc. Whereas, so it looks like sort of an arc sequence, that you have the sediments on the flanks of the volcanoes or coming off of them in part, and there's little bits of carbonate as well, or calc-silicate, whereas the Napiqua is an oceanic assemblage. So it has metachert, metabasalt that has more chemistry typical of mid-ocean ridge basalts. It has serpentinites in it. And so it's overall a very oceanic, and it has some schist, oceanic assemblage. So we've thought of it, many of us, have thought of it as an oceanic, perhaps an oceanic melange. And as Stacia mentioned, it was metamorphosed and then intruded by the granitic rocks or the granitoids related to the arc. So it's sort of the framework into which the arc rocks that we'll be looking at more later today, came into. And the Napiqua is an interesting group of rocks. It's been thought to be similar
I carved that up.
to rocks up near, for the Canadian folks,
near
up near Harrison Lake. And then in many ways farther, perhaps like Bridge River terrain, which goes many hundreds of kilometers northwards into British Columbia. And there's similar rocks to the south along strike in the Cordillera.
I mean, if you want to go crazy with correlation, don't some even associate or correlate Napiqua with Cache Creek?
That's been made as well. It's Jim Monger makes sort of a subtle distinction, but it's subtle in terms of the Ridge River perhaps being caught between the Cache Creek and the terrains and Wrangellia.
But if this stuff is kind of associated with some sort of arc, which I think you're saying, or
Yes.
those other groups are saying, which arc are we talking about? Is this Cornelia? Is this Stickinia? Is this
Uh,
something else?
I found it a little concerned. I
I don't want to put words in Liv's mouth, but my student, Colin Phillips, who finished up, have talked a few years ago, have talked about similarities to the Wallowa terrain in northeastern Oregon, which would put you up more thinking about correlations with Stickinia. And yeah, so more the, because it has a significant late Triassic, early Jurassic arc component, like a lot of these units do. There's
Zero
something called
chickens.
Cadwallader
Well,
and
perhaps
British
another day.
Columbia that we've correlated it with, and some of the reconstructions that Paul Umhofer and I did that matches up pretty well in terms of alignment.
And then there are some igneous bodies to go with it as well.
Yeah.
In addition to kind of the sediment that's part of the system.
The Marble Mount thing?
Yeah.
Exactly. That we passed. And that's kind of, if you do come down the Cascade River Road from Marble Mount, that's kind of the initial outcrops that you'll see along the road are all part of that.
Oh, they are.
Yeah. They're about, oh, I was going to say they're about 220. That's million. Those were dated by Jim Mattinson in part of his PhD thesis many years ago. And there's a whole belt. It's called the Dumbbell Plutons when you get down Dumbbell Orthonice farther southeast from here.
So I don't know. I'm going to push this probably too hard this winter, but I think I want to keep asking, are we looking at intermontane or insular at each of these spots, you know? And to me, that's one way to approach this Baja BC thing, is trying to keep track of what we feel comfortable with in the North Cascades is for sure insular or for sure intermontane. At least keeps it straight for me. And this has to be intermontane, doesn't it?
Well, there's the
Oh boy.
you want to throw the Monger interpretation in, which I kind of like, and Murray Journay, is that there are these small mini terrains, if you will, of the coast belt, which get caught between the insular. If you're insular and I'm intermontane, and Stacia's getting squashed between us, and in the coast belt, and she would be the Napiqua Cascade River, Cadwallader. That's one interpretation, that these are small terrains caught up between the two.
Yeah. Huh.
But if you had to say which would, certainly, I think it would be more like intermontane terrain if you're forcing, if you force me to say one or the other, which are they more like? I would certainly agree they're more intermontane.
Okay, the name of this place.
The Gorge Falls Overlook.
Gorge Falls Overlook at about noon on a Thursday in early August. I mean, I'm with two experts. I mean,
You got Stacia with a garbage can.
oh, that's good.
Only the best. And now we're officially in the national park.
So how much over the years have you officially kind of collaborated with the park or gotten permission from the park? Is that an issue at all? It must be.
Well,
If you got a hammer in a national park, that's okay, huh? For you?
only for some.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically the whole time we've worked in the park, we've gotten research permits, which allow us to collect samples and be able to go into areas and take samples home with us.
Nice.
Those all belong to the park and are on loan to us.
The samples themselves? Oh, really?
Yeah. To the point where at the end of each field season, they always ask us for a list of the samples that were collected, and they give their own unique identification number for them.
Oh, I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, so they're just on loan, and Bob and I and Mike are housing them at our respective institutions. And they also house some certain collections, like they have all of Peter Mish's old samples from his kind of collection in both, I think, the rock samples as well as thin sections, and they have a nice spreadsheet with it all organized, and I think are excited for the public to come look at it if they're interested.
Where
So
would they go?
to the main ranger station that's in Sedro-Woolley.
Well, actually, I think at least Mishes are in Marble now.
Oh, are they?
They work in the Cascades than I do, I think.
We're gonna cut in here.
Cool.
So at this locality, we have one of the, I feel like, really nice exposures of orthogneiss of the Skagit gneiss complex. So we're in kind of the central part, north central part of the crystalline core, and here this orthogneiss has been dated to around 71 million years old, and so part of kind of the big flux of magmatism that was the middle pulse, if you will, if you think of there being three big pulses of magmatism, one at around 90 MA, and then a lot of these bodies that are within the Skagit gneiss that are in that kind of 75 to 65 MA time frame, and then the final youngest one during the Eocene at that 50 to 45 MA. And so in this one you can see most of the rock is kind of grayish overall, but there are some locations where you have some of this white, where's a good spot? Over here maybe, this leucocratic material that's within there, the white stuff. And so people have interpreted a lot of that, what we call leucocratic material, to likely be partial melting that occurred, and in this case of potentially the orthogneiss rocks. And so throughout this whole transect along Highway 20, there's also a lot of these metasedimentary rocks where the sediment was buried down deep. And with those rocks, you have lots of biotite and micas within them that are prone to melting. So people always kind of assume those are the fertile melt source. But here we can also see evidence that probably some of what were igneous, crystallized igneous bodies also were metamorphosed and partially melted as well.
The middle age of the three flare-ups, it was just a regular old Pluton right here, no hint of metamorphic grain or anything. It was originally just like any other granitic body, let's say, tonalitic body.
Yeah, and probably, I don't know, Bob, what you would say, but probably smaller in scale in comparison to something like the Golden Horn.
For sure.
And some of these other Plutons that are big mappable bodies. A lot of these, what we call orthogneiss, were probably smaller pulses of kind of maybe miniature Plutons, if you will, that intruded into the central part of the crystalline core.
So using my simple-minded analogy of a geologic elevator going down and then coming up for the Skagit, is the elevator going down, do we start the descent of the elevator before the middle flare-ups come in? Or do we inject the 70 MA Plutons at shallow levels and then things go down?
No, I think a lot of these were probably in place pretty deep. Would you agree, Bob?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a lot of the mineralogy needed to get at the pressures in these rocks to test that, but yeah, it would make more sense for me that they were in place relatively deep and then were hot and deformed at those steps. Would you agree?
I think so.
Yeah, I can't really think of any evidence that suggests they were shallow and then got pushed down.
Is it an important question about the timing of the original Pluton material and then turning it into an orthogneiss, is it important to know where we are, both in time and depth?
Definitely. Yeah, because I think part of what we're always trying to do is think about, I think of cutting a slice through a volcano, you know, and going down into its deep plumbing system, which is what we're in here, and thinking about what that crustal section, if you will, looks like and how that's evolving through time. And I think that's a lot of what we're trying to do with this current project, is thinking about even like the thickness of that crust, if that's changing, you know, after, in between kind of these big magmatic fluxes and that sort of thing. So definitely important. And then the other part is that this is also the timing where a lot of the sediment is getting pushed down into the deep levels of the arc too. And so in terms of the timing and where these rocks were relative to where the sediment's going, but these seem to all be at the same level as a lot of the nearby sediment here.
Okay.
So
I forgot about the sediment thing at the same time.
yeah.
So this is subduction for sure, and we're in North America for sure. Nobody's saying we're out in the water here. This is a different arc than we did at our first stop. Has to be.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
for sure. One of the things that's part of the story here that I think Stacia first pointed out to me, but these are the ductile shear, so-called ductile shear zones, and so that is that shear can get localized in sort of the equivalent of fault zones, but at depth, and it gets narrow. It gets, in this case,
These
pretty
too
narrowly
high.
focused. And so what that does, I think that's one there. Yeah, you notice how that Stacia pointed that out. If you trace the white vein or the white Leuco material, as it comes down, it curves, it bends into an area of higher shear strain, and that's a classic pattern in a so-called ductile shear zone, which again would be a ductile equivalent of a fault. So when you go down in the Earth's crust, right, at some point faults become, instead of being rigid, brittle breaks, they become more ductile. Even though these don't have very much displacement on them, they may be representative of what the overall deformation regime is. So if, for instance, we find shear zones that are dextral, and we can date them to a certain period of time, then even though they're small, we might say that the overall tectonic regime was one of right lateral or thrust or whatever it happens to be. And that's the reason you again want to do some statistical analysis. And we're still working on that. We're finding quite a bit new data, I think, certainly the last couple summers. My student, Jeff Wagner, working, and what Stacia and Mike and Alex and I did last summer. So I think we're getting a lot more data on that. It's tricky because, of course, we know could be a lot of changes in deformation, or there were, over that interval from 70 to 45 million. So we're trying to work on that and using these small scale examples. And there was a suggestion,
back. I guess I'm gonna have to make more.
a student of mine, Nikki Windsor, who's now at the USGS in Spokane in the minerals branch. She had a suggestion, which Stacia's PhD work agreed with, potentially that there was early potentially left lateral shear at higher temperatures, followed by right lateral strike slip at lower temperatures, and probably younger, which fit with what the left lateral means is another question. So there are things like that we're working on, but it's pretty complicated, and I think we're getting some insights into that, just like we did in the Swalkane gneiss, get the name right, where we were able to work out, Scott Patterson and I were able to work out the kinematics that way, that actually there they were folded. So we're working on that. So these shear zones are important, but you really need to look at many tens of them before you try and make a big picture story.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right in there like a fold. So that's being sheared to the right. There's like a little bit of a drag up that. And then on the other side it comes up and goes in. So this narrow zone in here is where the highest shear is occurring, and it's causing that nice foliation in the earthenite that Stacia talked about to really curve into it well. So that's kind of a textbook ductile shear zone. There's another one up here doing the same thing. So that's what's causing the foliation, the fold. It's not like the typical just everything being folded, but more localized on these shear zones.
Right.
Anyway, it's kind of
Oh,
spectacular.
it's amazing, totally. So you don't really have do you have a mapped fault coming through the Skagit?
No, this would be
stuff?
very distributed. And that's
Oh.
what we think happens deeper in the earth. You got a site on the Mount Stewart Needles, and that guides you everywhere. See the Chilliwack basalt up there.
Yep.
And there's this creek coming up. So I assume this is the Skagit River.
Probably not the best map.
The Cascade River Road.
Yeah, right.
So we were kind of down in this area on the western edge of the crystalline core.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've driven back Marble Mounts kind of right at this junction here and driven along Highway 20 and the Skagit River. And
Oh yeah, we are no longer
the crystalline core.
just
So
surviving.
still west
We are
of,
now
the
officially thriving.
system.
So our transect
course.
today is following Washington 20, from west to east and up and over the North Cascades and Washington Pass. So our first stop was just south of Marble Mount, and we were looking at this beautiful straight creek. And Bob, you don't have the, yeah, we can hear you. So this is the Eastern Metamorphic Suite, and then here's the Pequot, I guess. Is that what the NS would be? Well, they're breaking up by terrain, yeah.
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 So yeah, coming through here would be the Cascade River and then the Pequot
Got it.
units that we were
Got it.
talking about.
Yeah. So we're just picking some spots up and over this road that you might want to come and check out yourself. I'll put a GPS location for each of our little stops in this video. I don't know, I'm starting to think like this would be one big long video. I don't know. Another parking lot. We're rolling. What's this place?
We're now at the Diablo Lake Overlook, which is a nice central part to look at both kind of the beautiful waters of Diablo Lake and their kind of alarmingly green color from the glacial flower that's in there.
Sure.
But it's also kind of a nice spot to look at all the peaks around here, and a lot of what we're seeing towards the north here on what's called Sourdough Mountain, as well as some of the peaks behind us. A lot of them are made up of the metasedimentary rocks,
Okay.
and up into the mystic clouds, and where it looks like it's raining, there's lots of metasediment up in that direction, and that's looking up towards Colonial Glacier, if you're familiar with the area.
So you've been up backpacking, both of you guys up there.
We have not.
Oh, you've not?
Both Kirsten Sauer and Ann Hansen have gone bravely up there.
Your former students, yeah.
Collected samples. Bob and I are supposed to go in about a week, and it's a climber's route that's
Up here?
goes up a ridge line, which the rangers the other day informed me might be a snow bridge, which will eliminate that hike for Bob and I, the non-climbers,
Yes.
non-ice axe users.
Oh, boy. All right, but sourdough, metasedimentary rock there of the Skagit Gneiss.
Exactly. So we've done a lot of work up there, in particular during my PhD. I dated both the metasediment, the host rock, and then it's very migmatitic. So it's undergone that partial melting and lots of different generations of that crystallized melt. That some of it's pretty what we would call early, where it's parallel to the foliation, the layering in the rock, and so it's gotten deformed with the sediment. And then there's the other later generations that are cross-cutting across there. And so what we found overall, looking at the sourdough area, another area west of here, and then John Pierce Falls to the east that we're going to go to, I guess, in our next stop, is that there's kind of two main pulses of this migmatization or partial melting, where one of them's around 65 to 61 million years ago. And so that's kind of right at the tail end of that middle flare-up event. So you can imagine at that point, there's a lot of heat in the crust because we've placed a lot of magma into the deep crust. We've also pushed a lot of the sediment into the deep levels. So I would imagine and assume that we're at a pretty thick crustal thickness too at that time, and it's pretty hot, thick crust. And so that's causing that partial melting at that time. And then the other generation we see is about 10 to 15 million years younger at around 53 down to 51-ish and probably into the early 40s. And so we think that that's probably starting to record as these rocks are coming up towards the surface, and basically that decompression that they're experiencing as that elevator is moving up causes them to cross over a bunch of melting reaction lines and undergo melting again. So that later event's probably recording that elevator rise, initial stages of it.
And all of that's recorded in that mountain over there.
Between that one and then the other two, kind of
Yeah.
compilation of dates.
Huh.
But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, sourdough did have both populations of ages from the two events.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's fight with the masses over here. Get
All
the
right.
names.
I think one thing that's also
please, Bob.
I think it's fascinating to me is that, again, we often think, okay, we've got Mount Stewart at 96 to 91 and all these Cretaceous plutons and falls and all that. And what's been a real eye-opener with the geochronology, or probably surprising in some ways, is just how much deformation we're seeing, melting, and all of this. And it's all, we're seeing this at the ages that Stacia just talked about. When you think then the rest of the rocks down towards Leavenworth were dead, essentially, geologically. And so how localized this is getting because of where heat is and where melt's coming in and the underthrusting of the sediments. And so how, our concepts of thinking of a mountain belt, well, the oldest rock should be the most deformed, and then the youngest ones the least deformed. We're seeing again this effect where we like to use the word rheology. Makes it sound smarter than just saying strength. But the rheology of the crust and the importance of this heat coming in from presumably from magma overall or from melt, and then the decompression that Stacia talked about, like the core complexes, being localized into a much narrower zone than the North Cascades as a whole.
Well, that's a new thought to me, that you've got the Wenatchee block shut off essentially, while this thing is really cooking.
Yeah, and even part of the Chelan block doesn't even the area, say, to the southwest near the Eniat Fault. That is probably where the Cardinal Peak and Eniat plutons. You have the Squawkane coming up, but you don't have that. You don't have such a distributed, intense, high temperature metamorphism, ductile deformation as you do in the Skagit Ice Complex. Mike's really high precision, tough ages, tough dates, and those sorts of things, is how then we are getting stuff down south, down by Mount Stewart, let's say. But it's all upper crustal and localized in these strike slip type extensional basins. So it's the spatial pattern is I'm not sure I understand it, but it's interesting. Following up with Stacia.
A little windy out here today.
Is it usually windy right here? Does it funnel up this canyon quite commonly?
Not probably to this degree, but
There's
a
a
little
sign on
wind.
the road that says next 17 miles or something.
I know. And
Watch out for severe side winds.
a placard about mountain winds right there too.
Should have read the signs. All right, so some Skagit meta-sediment right in the foreground here.
Correct. So you can see how it's a lot darker in color. It has a lot more of that biotite mica within there, less of the plagioclase that you'd see in the orthogneisses, and so that's partly what helps to identify it. It also tends to weather a more reddish color, kind of orangey color that you can see a bit of on that block there too. And yeah, if you kind of cruise around in Google Earth and look at some of the mountains to the south here, there's one called Red Mountain as well as Logan Mountain that both of those have a really reddish color, hence the name Red Mountain for the one. Kind of without going up to it, you can assume that there's a lot of metasedimentary rock there as well. So there does seem to be kind of a corridor of metasediments that are both along the highway right here, but then basically going kind of due south from here, you can track them down into the central part of the Skagit gneiss as well. And that's where Alex and I were just on a backpack down there trying to map them out some more.
Sure. So just for the uninitiated, it's still Skagit way over there. As far as we can see, are we into, we're still Skagit.
Still Skagit. There is a little bit of Napiqua within this area. This hill behind us is Ruby Mountain.
Let's head over there anyway.
And up in the clouds there is a tiny bit of Napiqua that's sitting up on top of the Skagit gneiss. And you see some Napiqua as well going to the east of here where you're starting to get into the Ross Lake Fault Zone.
Okay, well hang on here. I think your student Alex last night at the campground was talking about this. What was here that those middle-aged plutons were invading?
The Napiqua?
It was the Napiqua.
Yeah. And it got buried as well, right? Where it records the very high pressures, often I'd say even slightly higher than or equivalent to the Skagit gneiss as well as the Swakane gneiss.
Huh. So going back to our first video from this series, again, I'm pushing things too hard probably, but if you want the Napiqua to correlate with the Cache Creek, then since Napiqua was definitely here to start, then this is Skagit now that we're lumping in with Intermontane. Is that
well,
far?
I guess I would just say, you know, if Bridge River, if we say Bridge River and Cache Creek are very similar, I think the difference, I would say, it's like the old term stitching plutons.
Yeah.
That these were stitched by the time the Skagit formed, and these things would be coming into our assemblage, or in the old days, our collage of terrains, where probably in the mid-Cretaceous, although we see very little evidence of the mid-Cretaceous in here, center we had thrusting to the west and thrusting in the Methow to the east. In these terrains, it would be hard for me to imagine that this wasn't getting deformed as well. And then this after this major Cretaceous event, then we're continuing because of where the arc magmatism is. We're doing our Skagit orthogneisses and melting, etc., focused in a zone, but then the peak was already here.
God, dang,
So I wouldn't
that's
I wouldn't
exciting.
think of that as, so in a way I think of that as more like a pluton cutting through two terrains, or a sedimentary, used to be called an overlap assemblage, where you have. So yeah, the mid-Cretaceous part of the story is really cryptic in the area of the Skagit Gneiss, because the crust has been so reconstituted by this magmatism and metamorphism, and
In a way, the Skagit Gneiss is masking a bunch of older events. I never really thought about it like that before.
for sure.
Yeah. Another part I always think about is, we're not seeing the deepest levels of the crustal section either. And so who knows what's even hidden down deeper. I mean, at least with the igneous rocks, we can guess that it's more kind of mafic, more cumulate type materials, but what else is down there is,
Because as a reminder, Nick, just to follow up, we've argued based on our crustal section down from the Ten Peak to the Mount Stewart with Sudabari's, some of her geochemistry and interpretations, we've argued that the crust was at least 55 kilometers thick in the mid-Cretaceous. So as deep as these rocks are, 12 kilobars is probably the highest pressure we've got, the royal we, that people have gotten. So that puts us at 40 kilometers sort of maximum. So that would give us probably a minimum of 15 kilometers more of crust still below our deepest rocks, and perhaps more. If this really, as we've kind of speculated, is like maybe more like the central Andes, where the crust could have been 70 kilometers thick, twice the thickness of normal continental crust. That gets pretty speculative.
Oh, we came over here to fight traffic noise, but also to at least get a safe glimpse from across the way. So what are we looking at, Stacia, this road? And by the way, so you're remembering when they opened this road in the mid-1970s, and you remember these outcrops as just these pristine things.
Right, there weren't trees in the way.
Salivating at these new exposures, so they're the light is wrong, et cetera, et cetera. But Stacia, we're still in Skagit across the way?
We are, and a lot of what we've driven through from the last stop has been metasedimentary rocks, but this whole wall that we're looking at across the highway is another one of these orthogneiss bodies.
Okay, orthogneiss, okay.
Yeah, that's been dated somewhere between 68 and 64 million years ago. It is garnet bearing, and not everywhere in it, but in certain parts you can find garnet, and so the garnet was actually dated as well as the zircons within it to give that age range. And then you can also see a lot of that whitish rock that's cutting across it. So again, that what we call leucosome material that was once melt, that kind of formed sheets that have cut across. But then you can see that the margins of them aren't straight. There's lots of curvature. I might pause because there's going to be a big logging truck coming through.
Muffler boy.
One moment.
Crazy that they don't have mills on the east side of the Cascades anymore. They have to bring their trees across Highway 20.
But you can see that the margins are pretty curved, and that you kind of get thicker sections and they get pulled apart into thinner zones. And so that's what we call that boudinaging, the stretching that kind of pulls it into thick down into thinner layers. And so just showing that these probably are cross-cutting the foliation, but they themselves are still
We definitely
deformed.
should harvest our wheat.
And so I
and
just
our
say
wheat
when you're
makes some
driving
bread.
along this section, there's a lot of evidence that these
'Cause
rocks
I'm not
were
gonna
at pretty high
able to live very long
temperatures,
on
ductily flowing for probably a long time, from kind of the 70 MA down into that Eocene when they were decompressing.
So this white squirrely stuff is coming from a nearby Pluton? Or it's unclear where it's coming from?
Unclear, I'd say, here, or whether it could be coming from some of the metasedimentary rocks.
Oh, really?
Or whether it is kind of bits of a Pluton that are getting injected in.
But the thing that that strikes me, has always struck me about this is a little more mafic. It has more, well, walking over there, but not the veins, but the actual orthonite has a lot more mafic minerals, hornblende biotite.
Okay.
And this behaved pretty rigidly compared to some of the other orthonices. And that's again because mafic minerals, or at least horn amphiboles, are quite strong. In a plagioclase, it's also got less quartz than typical, I'd say, of the orthonices. The other thing, this is actually a pretty important outcrop. It was one of the, it's one where a fellow named Getty and Brian Warnicke they did a bunch of different, Getty did the work, a bunch of different techniques, and they did argon, hornblende,
There goes the baby.
biotite, and
So
they
we
were
will
able to
be
show that
ending
the
the
dates
stream.
were almost the same.
Thank you for
Calculable.
joining
I
me
can't
tonight.
remember what the cooling rates would be, but the stuff.
We'll probably pick this up next time. Have a good evening. And night.